Hey there, everybody, and welcome back to the Optimized Self Show, the show that's all about helping you rediscover your health, upgrade your fitness, and/or optimize your wellness, all while having fun and kicking ass through lifestyle design. For those of you tuning in to watch the show, and/or listen to the show, I guess, for the first time, basically the format is you supply the questions, and I at least attempt to supply the answers. I usually get it right most of the time. Sometimes I call from help from those in the health, fitness, wellness, let's put it under the umbrella of making bodies better world. Those that maybe know more about certain topics than I do. But we always have fun putting our heads together, together. I'm tongue-tied this morning, technically this afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. But we put our heads together, and another key component here of Optimized Self.Ninja and the private community, the Optimized Self Dojo, is we're all about crowdsourcing knowledge and, more importantly, experience so that we can help support one another, come up with solutions, and get you from where you currently are to where you want to be. So if any of that sounds of interest to you, then you're definitely going to want to stick around for today's show. We got a lot of good stuff we're going to be talking about. Let's see, coming up, we're going to be talking about the causation versus correlation between an elevated hip and an elevated shoulder, that whole conundrum. Which came first, kind of the chicken or the egg? Did the elevated hip create the elevated shoulder? Or did the elevated shoulder create the elevated hip? We're going to go through how you can figure that out and what to do about it. We're also going to determine whether your hip flexors are short and tight or long and taut, and of course, what to do about it. The importance of periodically taking breaks from caffeine. And then if you stick around a little later, I've got some bonuses, a little surprise for you, kind of in the way of some video playlists, some ones that, almost kind of like how Disney takes some videos from their vault and kind of does re-releases on them. Well, that's basically what I'm going to be doing, pulling out some videos, kind of blast from the past, but they're evergreen information. They're good all the time, things that you can fall back on, as well as some new stuff that I want to share with you, kind of give you a sneak peek on. All right. Oh, and last but certainly not least, kind of help walk you through the pricing structure of the Optimized Self Dojo, just in case if you were looking at it, as I know people have kind of looked at it and go, okay, you're getting an awful lot for an entry cost. What exactly is the catch here? And I get, a lot of us in the past have been kind of screwed over by big promises for small cost. So I want to go through and share with you what exactly is the catch. It's not scary. It's not anything. I just believe in full transparency. So we'll get to that later. All right, but before we do, let me take off the intro screen here, say hi, and let me put up a lower third here. Give me 1 second. And we got a better one coming, but in the meantime, we will make this kind of makeshift one. There we go. Boom. That's me, Justin Archer, aka Sensei, and you can find me at optimizedself.ninja. So we got a couple questions, got a couple topics, like I just mentioned. Let's get into the first one. But before we do, for those of you that don't know, we play the Optimized Self Show drinking game. Every time we change a address to a different person or questioner, we change topics. I take a drink of water, one, so I stay hydrated. Also, I put timestamps in later on YouTube in the description area, so you can quickly click on them and they're hyperlinked to parts of the video, much like, is anybody still watching DVDs or Blu-rays? If you are, you know how you can jump to certain parts in the DVD and the chapters, same thing like that. So that way you don't have to watch the entire video from beginning to end. If you do, God bless you, I love you. But you may just want to skip to a part that you find interesting. That's what those timestamps are for. And when I watch it back myself and I go to put those in, if I see me drink a drink of water, I know right about there, give or take 30 to 60 seconds, I'm changing topics. And so I make sure to put a timestamp in there. All right, so cheers, and let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to paraphrase a question because it kind of came from two people. All right, or actually, you know what? I'm going to do it the other way around. I'm going to read the questions by the people who submitted this on YouTube. It was on the same video, and then I will kind of paraphrase what they're getting at. Okay, so RayZahT, that's their username on YouTube, asks, can hip elevation also cause shoulder elevation? And also Alen Balazik, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Alen Balazik. It has a little thing over the Z, so it may be Balaik, but Alan anyway, says, hey, I have just one question. Can pelvic elevation also cause shoulder elevation to balance out? Because I have a little hip elevation, but my shoulder elevation is pretty noticeable. Thank you for your reply. So basically, to paraphrase, I would say that what they're both getting at is, can hip elevation cause shoulder elevation, or vice versa? Can shoulder elevation cause hip elevation? Whichever way you want to look at it. And basically, what do they have to do with one another? And this is a great question. I actually forgot to take the title of the post, but I was basically probably on shoulder elevation or hip elevation, the original post I did, and I'll make sure to link to that in the show notes on YouTube and down in the description area. All right. So yes, absolutely. Hip elevation and shoulder elevation are, they a lot of times they go together. Sometimes they can be separate. As far as which one came first, I mean, you can backtrack and see kind of, hey, look at old pictures of yourself and try to figure that out. But there's a quick way, right? I mean, I did a video post before on hip elevation. I did another one on shoulder elevation. But also it's going, okay, can one cause the other? Well, right now I'm kneeling. Let's see if actually I can back up here and get a full stance. So an elevated hip, would look something like this or like this. Elevated shoulder here or here. Well, if one hip is higher than the other, that's going to cause the spine to offset and then cause usually the shoulders to either the same side to hike up or go down as a way to compensate. Okay, and I won't get too nitty and gritty down into what is dysfunctional and what is compensating, because I fear I might bore some people with details. But here's an easy way to kind of figure out which came first and which to go after. Obviously, if you just have shoulder elevation, do the routine for shoulder elevation. If you just have hip elevation, do the routine for hip elevation. But if you have both, and I believe, was it Alan who said, let me check real quick. Yeah, Alan who said his shoulder elevation is pretty noticeable because he has a little hip elevation, but his shoulder elevation is pretty noticeable, which makes me think from the way he worded this that the shoulder elevation is more noticeable. It's more significant than their hip elevation, to which I would say then go after the shoulder elevation first. If you're going between two postural deviations and one sticks out more, it's more apparent when you look in the mirror, or if you were to see on someone else, you would go, whoa, that is really, really significant. And oh yeah, there's that little thing, but oh my gosh, look how much their shoulders are uneven. Go after that first, okay? And if it's a matter of symptom like pain, if you have two things that hurt, go after the one that hurts more, okay? Now, again, if you want to kind of prove this with functional tests, what you can see, or what you can do rather, and you should see, is if one hip is elevated, right, and you also have some asymmetry in the shoulders, try putting your hands behind your head and pulling your elbows back and watch your hips, okay? A lot of times, not all the time, but often people's hips will even out, right? The elevated hip will drop or the depressed hip will raise up, and now the hips are even. And what that functional test, the hands on the head, the elbows pulled back, what that is telling you is that the asymmetry in your hips is being caused, it's a compensation due to the asymmetry in your shoulders. So go after the shoulders first, which should not only take care of the shoulders, but should also address the asymmetry, the elevation in the hips. If it doesn't, you can follow it up with the hip elevation routine, but it should due to the results of that hand on the head test, okay? So that's how to get started with that. Now let's say though it's the other way around, okay? Let's say, how do you tell if your hip elevation is causing your shoulder rotation. Maybe you did the shoulder elevation routine, but you didn't get the results you want. Your shoulders didn't even out. Well, if you look south of your shoulders and one hip is higher than the other, you might go, yeah, maybe that's what's holding me back. And you might be right. Here's a quick way to tell is if check your feet, they're probably going to have some asymmetry, meaning, actually, let me see if I can point this down. Even if you don't see my head, that's okay. If your feet, ideally here straight ahead, if they're pointing outward, right, or maybe one forward and one kind of out like this, okay, then what I want you to do is try to put your feet in a bilateral position. So you can do a couple things. First I would say try just bringing them straight. And by straight, I'm measuring between the second and third toe. So right here, imagine if laser pointers came straight out that way, okay? The other part to look is if you're wearing shoes, look at this back portion of your heel, right before it starts to round, this back portion, that'll be a straight line, okay? We're not measuring by the insides of your feet because that'd be like trying to draw a straight line with a wet noodle. It just doesn't work out. Or it doesn't work out well, at least. So in between the second and third toe or outside the outer heel, make sure your feet are pointed straight. And when you stand like this, it may feel kind of awkward. It may feel like you're turning, like your legs are being kind of torqued, right? Because if your feet are used to being out like that, excuse me, I'm moving all around, and you turn them in, it's going to feel like they're torqued in. But take a look at your shoulders and see, did they even out? If so, that's a key sign right there that your foot position and the way that your thigh bones fit inside your hip sockets is causing that asymmetry in your hips, which is causing then the asymmetry or elevation of one shoulder, okay? Other foot stances you can try. Let me go back down here to my feet. So I would say first try straight ahead, check the shoulders. If it's better, then boom, test done, you figured it out. You need to get your knees and feet back to neutral position. Now, let's say you are severely torqued out. You may notice you may have to get even more internal rotation. We bring the big toes together and kind of tighten your thighs back a little bit, okay? And then check and see where the shoulders are. Now, let's say if your knees are already kind of naturally when you stand, they're kind of internally rotated like that. Try bringing your heels together and your feet out like so, and tighten your thighs, okay? And as you do this, if your shoulders even out, then that's going to tell you that you need to do exercises that promote more external rotation, okay? So those are the three positions with the feet. Straight ahead, then you need to get your knees and feet kind of neutral. If that evens out the shoulders, great. If you need to turn your knees and feet outward, like I just did, that means you need to do exercises that promote more external femur rotation. And if you need to turn your feet pigeon-toed, toes touching and heels out, that means you need to do more exercises that promote internal rotation of the femur. Either one of those, if any three of those work though, and your shoulders even out and your shoulders feel better, if you're experiencing any symptoms, then that'll tell you right then and there that yes, you have to address the hips and the way the femur is sitting currently in your hip socket before you can make any headway by addressing the shoulders. So address the hips first, because it's the hips that are dysfunctional and they're causing the shoulders to compensate by dropping one shoulder or the other, okay? So hopefully that makes sense, and those are just easy functional tests. First one, hands on the head, elbows pulled back, and then the other one, the foot stances, just to see which came first. Is the shoulder asymmetry causing the hip asymmetry, or is the hip asymmetry causing the shoulder asymmetry? All right, if you have any follow-up questions, RayZahT or Alen, Balazik, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Feel free to follow up with me. And last but certainly not least, I would definitely recommend both of you, as important as postural exercises are and the functional tests that I just showed you could help you kind of figure out, again, which came first, the shoulder elevation or the hip elevation, and, is there any causation or correlation? As much as that's important, I think it's also important to remember that exercise is part of the recipe. It's not the recipe overall, meaning that Your body is a stimulus response organism that responds to stimulus 24/7 without prejudice. So it's what you do the majority of the time that matters, not your best intentions. So what do you do the majority of the time? Well, it's not postural corrective exercises, I can tell you that, even as someone who did it for a living for 7.5, 8 years, and I did it way more than most people in the world. It's still not what I did the majority of the time. You have to factor in things that form your lifestyle, what I refer to as foundations of health. And those would be, in this order of importance, your breathing, hydration, sleep, nutrition, stress, movement, and then exercise. And you also have to factor other things in, like your environment and mindset, which are always going to be either positively or negatively influencing those 7 foundations of health that I just previously mentioned. Okay, so that's really important to keep in mind, is as much as you want to, as good as your intentions are, you cannot out exercise a problem. You can't exercise your will into health. Exercise is a part of it. As important as it is, I actually would go as far as to say it's the least important part. No quantity and or quality of exercise is going to compensate for suboptimal breathing, hydration, sleep, nutrition, all those foundations of health that I previously mentioned, which basically form your lifestyle. All right. Wouldn't you agree, Carmen? Carmen agrees. That's our Optimized Self Dojo canine pup there. Let's see if we can get her lay down. Come over here, sweetie. There you go. You can hang out here with me. There we go. Look how good she is. She seconds my opinion. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Live video. What are you going to do, right? Last thing I would say about, taking consideration, all the foundations of your health is, RayZahT and Alen, I would love to give you more specific feedback and recommendations on what next step or steps you should take. But in order to do that, I need a little bit more info from you. So if you both can go to optimizedself.ninja, and at the top, you'll see a logo, a video player. We'll see this and other episodes, past episodes of the Optimized Self show, where you can play those. And below it, there'll be a orange red button, big button. It says, click here to take the Optimized Self test, ask me a question, and discover and uncover what's holding you back. And click that button, and there'll be a place you put your email in, and you'll be sent a link to a Google form that basically is the Optimized Self test. And that will help you kind of self-review and reflect and go over each of those foundations of health. You will self-evaluate yourself. That sounds redundant, but let's go with it. Self-evaluate yourself in each of those foundations of health, and you'll be able to grade yourself on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being your best. And then I always find that helps people form more specific, higher quality questions that then you can leave for me in there. And then I could answer with better accuracy, better clarity, more preciseness to your unique situation. I can answer those questions in an upcoming episode of the Optimized Self show. So definitely check that out. Head on over to optimizedself.ninja, take the Optimized Self test. And also while you're on optimizedself.ninja, you can scroll below where you click that big red, orange, yellow button to take the Optimized Self test and take a look, see what's all included inside the Optimized Self Dojo. This is basically a private accountability / support group that also gives you access to the members and the groups and myself for continual support. Also gives you access to what I refer to as the Optimized Self Arsenal, which is a collection of various tools, guides, and resources. Basically, the most important things that I share with my one-on-one clients and my retainer clients. Most important things that I've learned over 13 plus years. I'm spending tens of thousands of hours and dollars figuring out. That can be found in there. And then we also do live trainings every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So definitely check that out. See if it's something that you think would be a good fit for you. And if you have any questions on it, please, by all means, follow up with me. And I would love to answer any more of your questions. All right. Anyway, this is kind of I don't think they know each other, but RayZahT and Alen Balazik, thank you for your very similar questions, which kind of helped form this one. I like it. I think that it was a really good question or questions. All right, so thanks guys, and look forward to seeing you in upcoming episodes of the show, or hopefully even inside the dojo. All right, so with that, let's move on to the next question. Switch up my sitting position too. Okay. I'm laughing or kind of smiling to myself because this one is from, and I'm going to try to pronounce this correctly. My wife, who is from Poland, actually helped me beforehand kind of pronounce this. I'm still going to probably mess it up. So if I do, I apologize. But Krzysztof, or it's not with an R, I know. Krzysztof. I hope I'm pronouncing that. She says it's Polish. You're going to have to tell me if it is. Anyways, Krzysztof sends in an email. My wife says that's a Polish name. I don't know if you're from Poland, but if so, obviously I love Poland. I married my wife who's from Polish. I've been there several times, love the country. Anyways, Krzysztof said, "Good morning, Justin. Are your thoughts on forward tilted pelvis the same as they were a year ago? I mean, those in," and then they supplied a link to a video I did last year called Short and Tight versus Long and Taut Athletic Postural Types. I'm going to start your routine as those hyped lunge stretches didn't make visible progress. Excuse me, but please tell me, is this whole thing of your psoas pulling on your pelvis / femur and thus bringing front of your pelvis closer to the ground, tilting it anteriorly, is it all wrong, and should I really forget about it? If you ask for my posture, I do look like long and taut type from your article above, like I support my weight on my toes, not heels. My knees go rather inward, and the main thing is my gut looks like it's spilling out, and there's not much fat on my body, about 22%. So I want to level my pelvis back to horizontal position. Is your routine the best way to do it? Greetings." And Krzysztof already says those foreign names, which I like that. Yeah, they can kind of, anybody can poke fun at themselves and their names. Done right by me. So a couple things here. Yeah, long and taut. Let's go over what short and tight is versus long and taut in terms of hip flexors. And let's actually review really quickly about pelvic tilts. Okay, so of course Carmen is right here. So I'm going to tilt this up. So an anterior pelvic tilt is where the front of your pelvis, your ASIS, which is an acronym for anterior superior iliac spine, is lower to the ground than your PSIS back here, which is known as an acronym for posterior superior iliac spine. So this would be an anterior pelvic tilt, and the exact opposite of that is a posterior pelvic tilt. Today we're just going to be focusing on the anterior pelvic tilt. Well, anterior pelvic tilt, a very simplified version of this is, well, it's a combination of your hip flexors, prominently your iliopsoas, which goes from your inner thigh through your pelvis and attaches to every lumbar vertebra in your lower back. You got that on your left side, and you have that on your right side. Those, in conjunction with your spinal erectors that are kind of pulling upward to create that arch, those are pulling up while your hip flexors are pulling down, and that's what's causing the anterior pelvic tilt. And so that being said, a lot of people think, well, we should just really try to, feed slack to your spinal erectors while simultaneously stretching the ever-loving you-know-what out of your hip flexors, and that's the cure for anterior pelvic tilt. And at one point, I believe this to be true, and I wish it was always as simple as that. Sometimes it is, and those people will get a lot of benefit from simply doing, a lunge type thing, maybe far out in front, maybe just 90 degrees, tucking their pelvis and really stretching that. I'll show you on this side so you can see better. Stretching the iliopsoas muscle, okay? But if it doesn't, then, and from Krzysztof, I hope I'm getting that name right, but by their description, let's see, of their posture, it says that they support the weight on the toes, not heels, so their weight's forward. And, sorry, I'm reading this from afar. The knees go inward rather than outward. That's usually a sign of hip flexor weakness, not strength. And the gut spilling forward, which that is kind of, if you have anterior pelvic tilt, short and tight or long and taut, that's kind of bound to happen. So yeah, definitely from this description, I don't have any pictures to go off, but this definitely sounds like a long and taut versus short and tight. So let me kind of demonstrate or mime for you what I would say short and tight versus long and tight. Short and tight would be, okay, you have the anterior pelvic tilt, and let's say you have some knee flexion, like a little bit of knee flexion like this, okay? So this is, if you look at insertion and origin points from the lower back to the front of the thigh, this is being brought together. This would be more hip flexion. Now, if you had something like this, and granted, this is really extreme, but even a little bit more upright like this, I would definitely go with the conventional, okay, we need to stretch the ever-loving you-know-what out of the hip flexors and release some tension in those spinal erectors. That's kind of the stereotypical exercise prescription or kind of guidelines to release that. But what I'm finding more and more, that used to be what I just showed you, that'd be kind of the short and tight postural type, more flexion everywhere. Used to see that more and more, especially in athletes or people that used to be athletes. Now what you're starting to see is more of the long and taut, where people say, my hip flexors are really tight. It's not that they're tight, like bound up like this, it's that they're long and taut, they're stretched to their limit. So let me show you long and taut. Still anterior pelvic toe, but weight towards the front of the feet, towards the toes, like this, and then usually the back is arched like this, because if you kept going this way, obviously you would fall forward on your face. So it's kind of something like this, hips bailed forward and then back arching up. Well, now the insertion origin points of the iliopsoas, the lower back and the front inner of the femur, are now actually moved a greater distance away from each other. So actually stretching them would make the problem worse. And the other thing that I think a lot of times people don't take into consideration with things like the hip pain or the tight hip flexors, they're just looking at the muscles. Well, the muscles what hurts and everything, and they don't take into consideration the actual joint capsule. Well, what happens when you're in this long and taut position, you can see, even if with the anterior pelvic tilt, this is extension going on. Flexion, extreme flexion would be this, extension is back. Short and tight, right, with a little bit of knee flexion, a little bit of this. Okay, you can see from the geometric shape of my body, there's flexion going on here. Versus long and taut, there's extension going on here. I mean, I look like, Green Arrow's bow here. I'm actually wearing an olive green shirt, so that works. But with long and taut, yeah, stretching the muscle isn't going to help any. Actually, it's going to hurt. And the other thing you have to take into consideration is the joint capsule. With the femur, with your weight towards your toes and your hips shifted forward, anteriorly shifted, which is different than anteriorly tilted. This is a tilt, this is a shift. So with your hips anteriorly shifted, what's happening, and kind of what that picture tells me, is that there's not enough strength in your gluteal muscles as well as your hip flexors to keep your thigh bone towards the back of the socket. And what's happening is it's the thigh bone inside the hip socket is pushing up towards the front of the hip socket, and in doing so is actually, imagine my shirt was part of my my iliopsoas, right, my hip flexor, and here's my hip bone, and it's pushing like that. And so you can see my shirt, as I push out, my shirt is taut, right? It's getting long and taut. There's no more shirt, there's no more slack. Well, that's what's happening. And although it feels like, oh, this is really tight, and you may get even temporary relief from doing, stretches and things like that, you're actually, again, making the problem worse. So the prescription in terms of exercise guidelines I would give is strengthen your glutes and your iliopsoas, this is if you're long and taut, to pull the thigh bone towards the back of the hip socket, as well as do some joint mobility work to place the thigh bone towards the back of the hip socket. Kelly Starrett from Mobility Watt has a lot of great stuff on this. Some very simple ones you can do. I'll demonstrate one really quick for you. I already demonstrated some postural exercises in the long and the short and tight versus long and taut athletic types, the original post, which I'll link to in the show notes. But here's something easy you can do to put that thigh bone towards the back of the hip socket. Is, let's say I'm working on my left side. Externally rotate slightly, like so. Move your weight over the thigh bone. And basically what you're trying to do is put your weight on that knee. So then the thigh bone, you're almost trying to have the, I'll turn this way so you can see. You're almost trying to have that thigh bone come out of the backside of your butt. And then you can even kind of rock back on it like so, okay? And you can do that for, say, 1 or 2 minutes. Oh, look, Carmen's doing some stretches too. Very good. That was a good cobra. That was a good cobra. But you can do this, kind of rock back and forth. You can kind of go side to side, find the kind of missing ranges of motion, go hunting for those spots that's maybe difficult for you to get into. And little by little, just like bending a paper clip to make it take on a new form, you're going to help drive that thigh bone towards the back of the socket. And a lot of people lose range of motion just in the joint capsule itself. You do that, and a lot of your problems will clear up, as well as the benefits you'll get from the postural corrective exercises that I linked to in that original post. You'll get more from that as well, okay? So I think that covers, yeah. Generally speaking, again, I know I already said this, but I think it bears repeating. The long and taut postural types that I just demonstrated should stretch less and strengthen more. The short and tight, they need to stretch more and strengthen less. So they're basically on the opposite ends of the spectrum, okay? And also, I actually wrote down a pronunciation. I had my wife right before the show come over, like, how do you pronounce this? Because I always feel bad if I mispronounce names. And I should be better at it because my wife's from Poland. But Krzysztof, I would recommend, because I want to give you even better, more precise recommendations. I mean, you got stuff to start with the routine and the joint mobility, joint capsule manipulation that I just showed you there. But what I would also recommend is head on over to optimizedself.ninja and click on the big red orange button below the video player. It's really easy to find, it's at the top of the page. And click there to take the Optimized Self test. And why I would recommend you do this is because it'll help you kind of self-review and self-reflect, not just exercise, which is important, right? But I always talk about exercise isn't it's not the recipe, it's part of the recipe. And although important, you cannot out-exercise a suboptimal lifestyle. And by lifestyle, I mean including what I refer to as foundations of health, things that we need not only in order to survive, but we need to optimize in order to thrive. So those being in this particular order: breathing, hydration, sleep, nutrition, stress, movement, and then exercise. Because I want to make sure that you and anyone else watching, if you're going to spend the 20, 30, 45, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, however long you're going to spend doing either postural corrective exercises or strength training or whatever, that you get the most bang for your buck. Because if you haven't addressed things like your breathing, hydration, sleep, and those other foundations of health, then you're always going to be limited by the results you can get from the time and effort you put into doing exercise. And I just hate to see people spinning their wheels trying to do more or trying harder when it's something as simple as maybe eliminating a food that they have food intolerance to, or getting more sleep, or drinking more water because they're chronically dehydrated, or regaining proper control of their diaphragm so that they can breathe properly. All those things will hold you back from getting the best results you can out of the exercise, okay? So definitely go over to optimizedself.ninja, take the Optimized Self test, and it's really quick, takes a few minutes, and basically what you're doing is you'll be supplying me the information I need to better help you. So you'll be helping me help you, and in there's a place that you can ask more questions, and I would love to answer your questions in an upcoming episode of the Optimized Self show. All right, so Krzysztof. I keep putting an R in there. My wife's like, there's no R. And I don't know. I do that. My wife, when we met, made fun of me. I used to call Mila Jovakovic or something. She's like, you're adding syllables in there. I'm like, I can't. I'll call her whatever I want. So we always joke about that. But anyways, yeah, please take the Optimized Self test. And while you're there on Optimized Self.Ninja, check out everything that's included inside the Optimized Self Dojo, because I think you would also benefit from a lot of things in there. I don't want to bore everybody on the show explaining again, but really quickly, it's part accountability and support group with other like-minded individuals in there. We do weekly live trainings every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We do, there's various tools, guides, and resources that you can access through there. So it's a really, really cool place. You can check out everything that's included over at optimizedself.ninja, but love to have you as a member of that as well. All right, so thank you for your question, and let's move on to what's next. We got some water though. Okay, actually, I think for questions we're done, but that doesn't mean turn off the episode, because we still got some really exciting stuff. I usually find it kind of comes in waves. 1 week, I'll get like a lot of questions. I have to play almost catch up, then kind of going into next week. And then the next week will be a little bit slow, which actually right now I'm okay with, because I'm in the process of adding things to the dojo. I'm always trying to add value and trying to figure out how to automate certain things and how to make it easier for members of the Optimized Self Dojo to find things. So it gives me time to do that. So I'm actually, although eventually I want lots of questions every week, right now I'm kind of okay with little lulls and little slow spots, to be honest. But this week, what I want to do to kind of fill some viewing time, because I know we've only got well, technically we got 3 questions in there, so that's actually pretty normal. 2 of them just happen to be on the same or similar topic, that hip shoulder elevation deal, which came first, chicken or the egg, or in this case, shoulder or hip. Something I do want to share with you guys, and hopefully anybody watching will know about this, but it's the Catalyst of the Day videos. And I'm putting together a playlist. And these are short videos that I've been doing since January 1st. And I've been doing them on Instagram and posting them on the Facebook page and on YouTube. And they're short, 15 seconds, so they're little tidbits of information. Why I call them Catalyst of the Day is because some of them will be question of the day, fact of the day, quote of the day, challenge of the day, news of the day, thought of the day, call to action of the day. I think you get the point by now. But all of them are catalysts for positive change in your life. 95% pertaining to health, fitness, and wellness. So what I'm going to do is, if you got the email for this or in the show notes, I will put together a playlist. And let's see, from January 1st to, this will go out March 23rd, and I did like a time to date calculator. That should be 82 videos times 15 seconds, however long that is. You don't have to watch them all at once. That's a lot of me. But you can watch them, little bits and pieces, 15 seconds here, 15 seconds there. And there's a lot of great information, easily digestible because they're 15-second videos. So I just wanted to make you, if you weren't already aware of those, that they exist, and I'll put together a playlist and I'll link to them in the email I send out to my list, and also in the show notes below in YouTube, okay, in the description area. Which actually brings me to my next topic. I guess I should drink water here. It's kind of a sub-topic. I'll drink water anyways, I'm thirsty. So speaking of playlist, another one I'm going to put together, because I talked to a friend of mine Friday, I think was it, about taking a break off of caffeine for a week, and I'm doing that this week as well. Many of you know I love bulletproof coffee. I've over the last year become a little bit of a barista. It's kind of become a hobby. By all means, I'm not good. I'm still learning a lot, but it's become kind of like a fun little hobby of mine. And as much as I love coffee, and I do like the benefits of caffeine, I think it's important to periodically take a break from it, because caffeine interacts with your adrenals, your adrenal receptors in your brain, and if you have too much coffee too often, they get burnt out. And that's why, you know, we've all probably experienced this at some point in our lives, or experiencing it now, that you used to have 1 cup of coffee and oh, you'd be set for the day, and then you needed 2 cups, and then 3 cups, and 4, 5, 6. I hope not more than 6. I hope not more than really 2 or 1. But you realize that you need more coffee to kind of get the job done, and that's a sign right there that you've grown a dependency to it. Your body's built up a tolerance to it, and it's also a sign that your adrenals are getting burnt out. Think of a key lock and a key that goes in, and then the key that turns. And that's how adrenals work in your brain, almost like a key going into a lock and then switching, opening, and closing. But if you use a key in a lock enough times, maybe the key breaks off, maybe the lock doesn't, you know, turn as easily after so many times being used. Well, that's what happens to your adrenals. So what I recommend, and what I practice, what I preach, is on caffeine. And I don't really recommend caffeinated drinks all that much, like I just forgot, Red Bull or Monster drinks or things like that. I do enjoy coffee. I have it with grass-fed butter and MCT oil, sometimes a little bit of xylitol and stevia for some sweetener, one of the two, and then different beans and brewing different ways. It's kind of a morning routine. It's fun for me. I like it. Not just the taste of the coffee and the health benefits I get from it, especially cognitively, but also just the routine in the morning. It's kind of my time to do that. As much as I enjoy that, I recommend people 2 months on, 1 week off. So 2 months on, 1 week off. Now, if you can't remember the last time you've gone a day or a week or 2 weeks or a month without caffeine, I definitely recommend you do this. Take a week, in some extreme cases 2 weeks, but at least try a week taking off coffee. And it's maybe tough the first few days, but it's gonna be really amazing, especially when you return back to it, okay? Now, in that week, there's a couple things I recommend doing to make your transition into living caffeine-free easier, let's say optimal, okay? And so I put together a no caffeine for a week challenge. I did this last year. I put together a playlist, and I'll link to it in the show notes below. And it's 7 videos, 1 per day, that you can do. And you can watch them beforehand too, and then you can watch them again as you go through the 7 days of taking a break off caffeine. And I won't bore you with too many details because it's all in the videos that I'll link to, but a couple things you can do is supplement with things like phosphatidylserine and choline bitartrate. You can take cold showers to wake up in the morning. There's also other health benefits of cold showers and cold therapy. There's certain exercise you can do that'll really help wake you up first thing in the morning. What else? There's a lot of good info in there that you can do to help. Those are just a couple I listed, but to help get you through, and not only get you through like survive, but to actually thrive during the 7 days. Oh, another one of my favorites, actually I just finished mine, is doing about a cup or 2 of water with some, all right, what are you doing? Come here. You need some coffee? Come here, Steve. She's getting antsy. Where are you? Having some water with some Himalayan pink, some pink Himalayan salt or Celtic sea salt in there, like a teaspoon of it. You just mix it up. It's really, really good. Helps resynthesize your adrenals. So there's all that and more inside the No Caffeine for Week challenge. So definitely make sure to scroll down into the description area, and under mentioned links, you'll find, well, all the mentioned links, but also that one to the playlist, the No Caffeine for a Week playlist. All right. And let's see, there's one other note here. If you like playlists, and especially if you like the catalyst of the day, the short videos, it's not actually the first playlist I put together of short videos like that. Quite the opposite, actually. Back in my thepostureguy.com days, which for those of you that don't know was my health, fitness, wellness business venture, endeavor, whatever you want to call it, journey project that I did before Optimized Self Ninja, I did what were called viddies. And the reason I called it that was because there used to be an app called Viddy, which allowed you to do short videos, I think up to 30 seconds long. And I did actually 440 back-to-back daily videos. And you can actually find those. They're in playlists inside the Optimized Self Arsenal. And the way you get access to the Optimized Self Arsenal is through the Optimized Self Dojo. And the way you get access to the Optimized Self Dojo is by heading over to optimizedself.ninja, and you can scroll down and you can see everything that's included. And one of it mentions is daily inspiration / motivation, which are these short videos. And they are, some of them are inspiring, some are motivating, many of them are informative, practical daily tips, tricks, things like that that you can use on a daily basis to make incremental but continual progress. So those are also included as a part of the lifetime membership to the Optimized Self Dojo. So just one more thing. Again, if you like the Catalyst of the Day playlist, and those I'll link to in the show notes, you know, you don't need to pay for access for anything of that. But if you like that, you are definitely going to like the daily videos. And like I said, there's 440 of them, and they range anywhere. Most of them are about 30 seconds long on average. So that'll keep you busy for quite a while. All right. And we got one more topic. Let me finish off this water. Okay. Actually, I gotta kind of get kneeling position here. Too low on the ground. Okay. So last thing I want to share with you, because actually I was bouncing emails back and forth with a couple people about this, is explaining, because I think I have in the past, but in case I haven't, or maybe I just need to repeat myself, which is fine, the method behind the madness of the pricing structure that's going on in Optimized Self Ninja. And I wrote an email to someone that actually I think pretty concisely puts it. So let me find that really quick. And I won't mention the person that I emailed it to, but so I'll just read the part that kind of brings us to the pricing structure. Blah, blah, blah. Do please keep me posted and let me know if there's anything else I can do to help. I also wanted to make you aware that since our last exchange of emails, the price on lifetime membership of the Optimized Self Dojo has gone up slightly. I only mentioned this because you expressed interest in joining, but also said that money was an issue. And given that the price of every membership goes up with the sale of the previous membership, I thought you would like to get in at the absolute lowest price possible. It's probably also important to note that eventually the price will raise to $365 and then shift from being a one-time payment to an annual / quarterly / monthly membership. This pricing structure is set up this way to reward action takers and entice those contemplating taking ownership of their health to come down off the fence and finally commit to themselves, as well as a group of like-minded individuals. Yeah, and the rest is kind of meant specifically for them. But hopefully that email to that person will help kind of clarify, basically, because I've actually shared this with some people in some business masterminds, and when I first announced how I was going to do the pricing structure, a lot of people thought I was crazy because there's $3,650 worth of value in the course if you just include the first year, because you got the built-in accountability and support group, which is huge, not just of myself, but of other members. And I'm so happy to see members, when someone else new comes in, they welcome them. The new person says, hey, here's what I'm trying to do, whether it's lose weight or get out of pain or whatever it may be. And we got members from all over the world, and I can't be awake 24/7. And so it's nice to wake up and check the group and see, oh, so-and-so responded to this, and said, hey, take a look over here, or this might help you, or ask Justin this, because I think this, but I'm not sure. And I'm like, this is great. This is exactly what I wanted the group to be, is people helping others. A lot of people look, at healthcare and they look at self-care and they point out the negatives of the healthcare system, and then they also point out the negatives of self-care. And it's like, well, you know what? When you put self-care and healthcare together, you get welfare, which is community care, not welfare as in welfare checks, but we're taking care of each other. And I think that's a key component that that the health and fitness and wellness industries need is we can't just be looking out for ourselves. We have to look out for our fellow human being. And that's why I always sign off in my emails, take care and be a good human, meaning be the best human you can be for yourself, but also be the best human for your friends, your family, and your loved ones, and look out for them. Look out for, on their behalf in terms of health, fitness, wellness, but also just generally speaking, their life. So sorry, that was a little tangent. Went into a little mental, emotional part, but I really think that that's so important, and that's just a small part of what you get as being a part of the Optimized Self Dojo. You also get access to the Optimized Self Arsenal, which I previously mentioned is basically a collection of tools, guides, and resources, video tutorials, all that stuff that take you by the hand and walk you step by step on how to go about optimizing each of the 7 foundations of your health, as well and more. But definitely first based off the 7 foundations of health: breathing, hydration, sleep, nutrition, stress, movement, and exercise. And the cool thing is all that is based in Google Docs. And if you're not familiar with Google Docs, it's a way to work collaboratively with people, and you can have live documents. So what I set it up is that anybody who has access to the doc, although they can't edit the doc, and there may be future versions where they can just straight edit it, they can view it and they can make suggestions. And when they make a suggestion, they can highlight something, ask a question, or they can even type into the document, oh, maybe this should be here. And I'll get that notification. And if it's like, yeah, wow, this is a really good suggestion, I can approve it. Or even if, hey, that's a good idea, let me add this to it. I don't have to then send out, oh, well, here's version 2.0 and you have to re-download it or something like that. Literally, if you were looking at the screen as I was going from version 1.0 of a document to 2.0 or 1.2 or whatever the newer version is, if you can actually sit there and watch as I typed out each character, it would appear on the screen. If I had a typo, you would see the typo and, oh, let me backspace, and you would see it's a live document. That's what I love about this technology. And it allows so that it's not just, hey, here's everything that Justin thinks is important and that should be taken as gospel, because I definitely do not believe that should be the case. But it's collaborative. We're putting our heads together. We're crowdsourcing information, our knowledge, and more importantly, our experience to help one another get from where a particular person is currently to where they want to be. And that is huge. We also meet every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time for live trainings, and I welcome people to come on video with me. All you need is a computer and a webcam, really, is basically it. Headphones, preferably for better audio, but it's not a make it or break it deal. So computer, webcam, that's it. And you can come on video with me. We can talk about whatever you deem as most important. So there's that part of it. And like I said, it's always been upgraded. It's always been modified to fit the users inside so that it serves them, so it provides them the most value in the simplest, most efficient way possible. And we're having a lot of fun inside. And yeah, I definitely, like I said in my email, I like to reward action takers. And that's why I started off access to this for as little as $1. Some people, there are more than 20 members in it now, because some of them came from the postureguy.com when I was selling the modules, the breathing, hydration, sleeping, all the foundation modules individually. And at the time, I didn't know that I was going to upgrade into this much, much bigger thing. And so I thought, you know what? They bought this at this price. I'm going to upgrade them. They didn't ask for it, but I was like, I'm going to upgrade it because I think that's the fair thing to do. But yeah, with every membership, the price is going to go up to $1 until it gets to $365, at which point it's going to go from a one-time payment to, there's going to probably be $365 annual. I do want to keep the price down to about $1 average. And then there'll be a quarterly and a monthly one. Obviously, with the if you sign up for a full year, it'll be, I haven't worked out the percentages yet, but it'll be significantly cheaper to sign up for an entire year than it will to be for a quarter or for a month. But whichever way you go, it'll be a membership. You'll pay it either monthly, quarterly, or annually. Whereas right now you can get in for one-time payment. I think right now the asking price is $20 or $21. But even if it was full price at $365 for a one-time payment, it's huge. You know, my rule of thumb in creating things to sell people is always try to create 10 times value. So even at $365, you're still going to be getting $3,650 worth every year, just in the first year. So $365 would be still an amazing deal. $20 is a steal, and I'm okay you or other people stealing from me. You know, and some people have asked like, oh, I feel like this should cost more. if you feel that, then I'm not gonna ask for a donation. What I ask for you, I'm gonna ask for a much bigger investment, and that is of your time and effort. And by that, I mean, go in and actually apply what is inside the dojo, and then go out and share what you've learned, and share the love and spread the word about the dojo, and bring others that you know and care for into it, because I know they would appreciate you thinking of them, keeping them on top of mind, and I would appreciate it too, because I believe that with every member that we grow, every person that joins the dojo, that that the value of the group goes up exponentially, because I believe everybody is both a student and a teacher, and I actually invite people to come on to teach the group things that they've learned in the process, because like I said before, I don't want this to be, hey, just listen to Justin and do everything I say, because I always you know, tell people that I think listening to, you know, health professionals is usually a good idea, but doing what health professionals say, just blindly accepting it and doing what they say, is always a bad idea. You should cross-reference, you should do your own research, you should be your own guru and come to your own conclusions, because the responsibility of your health begins and ends with you. You know, me and other health professionals, we're just here to help kind of, you know, hopefully help you avoid some of the common pitfalls and mistakes, and kind of streamline the process, and kind of be you know, coaches or strategists or whatever you want to refer to us as. So I know we went off there a little bit, but I just wanted to hopefully convey the value of the group, and also explain the pricing structure, because I try to be as transparent as possible. You know, I always tell people, hey, if you want to know, like, here's what I'm going to be charging, and here's what I have planned as far as I know. Now that may change in the future, but here's, you know, up until next year, I know how this is going to go. After that, I don't know. And if you want to know where your money is going, I'll show you. You know, don't really have any secrets. I'll even show you, hey, your dollar went towards buying this thing or that thing, or doing this for the business. So like I said, I know I appreciate transparency in others and in business, so I just want to try to reflect the same in what I do in my business. So anyways, hopefully that helps explain the pricing structure for you. I would drink some more water as we close out here, but I don't have any left. So that is a perfect time to end the show. I will say before I go, if you haven't done so already, please head on over to YouTube, which if you're watching this on optimizedself.ninja, just click the title of the video, episode, what are we on now, 23? Episode 23, click the title at the top, and depending on your browser settings, it'll open up a new tab or window. If you are watching us on YouTube, great, because I would really, really appreciate it if you would like this video, share it with someone that you know. Like I said, I know they would appreciate it. I would too. You would be both of our heroes. And then if you haven't already, please subscribe. That way you stay up to date with all the recent happenings and going on. You'll be notified when I post new videos like the Catalyst of the Day, or the new episodes of the Optimized Self Show, which I put out 2 a day. And then also, if you're already inside the dojo, you'll also be notified whenever we have a live training, which you can pretty much guarantee is going to be every Saturday, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. But maybe I do an impromptu one just for fun. You'll be notified, hey, Justin's online doing a live event right now. You know, would you care to join him? And then you can just simply click one button and boom, you're in. Easy peasy. All right. Anyways, thank you for joining me on today's episode, and I look forward to seeing you all inside the next one. Until then, take care and be a good human.